Good evening, everybody. So, as I've said, I'm going to do a little bit of astrology today. We'll have a little look into what's going on up there at the moment. We're in Pisces now, and as many of you will know, we have a very significant state of affairs going on up in the sky, in the heavens. We've currently just entered into Venus retrograde, and that's shortly going to be met with Mercury in retrograde as well, right? And with both of those together has some quite significant implications. Got to make sure I'm using my words correctly and not creating a terror storm here, because it's not. It really isn't. It's going to, if anything, it's going to be an incredible set of circumstances, and we're more than likely going to experience some really quite interesting phenomenons and what are they called, like where people call them, words on the tip of my tongue, coincidences, if you use that word, right? So I've made a couple of notes, and I think I'll probably do a short series on this because like I say, there's the period that was leading up into Venus going into retrograde, and then there's a period which, if memory serves me well, it is like from March the 3rd, I think it was, until March the 15th, where Venus will be in retrograde by itself, which will then be joined by Mercury going into retrograde. The Mercury goes into retrograde 2, 3, sometimes 4 times in a year, so that's not something that we're not used to. But Venus going into retrograde is something that happens a lot on a more rare occasion, and Venus usually goes into retrograde once every 18 months. The only planet other than that to really go into retrograde any later that we can really observe is, if I'm correct, Mars, and that's every, I want to say, 26 months. I'd have to double check my figures on that one. But the funny thing is that we've got we've got both Venus and Mercury retrograding in Aries, and it's going to be coming out of retrograde in Pisces. So first of all, it might be a good port of call if I look at some of my notes that I've made here for you, just to have a look and try to get a general understanding of what a retrograde really is in astronomy first, if you don't already know. If you do know, then please bear with. So a retrograde is due to the orbits that planets go are orbiting the sun, and our perspective here on Earth viewing them. They're always going around in an orbit, and they have their own orbits and their own their own paths on their orbits, right? So some of the shapes can be a little bit different, the way they orbit. And when planets get to a certain point in their orbits, even though they're continuing to go forwards, it can be observed from our perspective here on Earth that a planet slows down to a point of stopping, and then can even be seen, the actual retrograde, to be moving backwards in the sky before shooting off forward again. And when you take that into consideration with time, because without getting too complicated, time, although it's fluid, it's always moving and expanding. It's like pi again. I'll try not to digress and get too complicated here for myself. Okay. But when we take that into consideration, we have a look at what that really means. It's like as time is moving forward, and yet the planets are slowing down to a point of stationary. And as they're slowing down, really is when the retrograde begins, because our time from our relative point of view is still continuing forward, right? So the fact that it's slowing down, it's like it's like bullet time on an action movie, you know, where, like in the Matrix, where Neo is slowing the bullets down and kind of dancing around him. That's the slowing down of the time as it's starting to slow down. And then when it gets to the standstill point, it's when Neo is able to be in a position, hold that position, the bullets aren't moving, and then he's able to freely move within those bullets, right? And then the retrograde is when it puts it back into reverse. So it's the point in which he actually turns the bullets around and fires them back, or reverses time. Now, if you look at the kind of some of the connotations that can come with that, it's like as time is always moving forward with us from our perspective, us getting older biologically here on Earth, we can only live in the present, really. We can only observe things in the present, but we can live in the past in our minds, or we can always be trying to look to the future to see where we're going. But really everything is happening in the present, in the now. It's a gift, that's why it's called the present. Okay, I hope that this is easy to follow. This is the first take, and hopefully the only one. Now, because the energy is always changing in that aspect, because the sun emitting the light, reflecting off of all of the different planets that then reconverge back down on Earth, you know, and we feel them, although they converge in other places too, but where we feel them, we're always moving with that, with the time, with the energy that is going forward, right? So when it slows down, it's almost like all of the backlog of all the processing that we've been doing up until that point, it starts to catch up with the planet, because it seems like it's stationary until the point where it goes into a retrograde, at least by people's understanding of it actually visibly looking like it's going back on itself. And that's when the lessons of the past, depending on the planet in which it is, will give the aspect of how we will be able to observe and have a chance to really fine-tune our lessons, and to, you could say, be tested, but it's not like it's a pass or fail, but it's just to see how far we've managed to grow within ourselves at that point. And it brings a lot of things forward. Now, if we're talking about Venus, Venus is the planet that's known for love. It's known for finances. It's known for beauty, but also in the ancient Greek is the goddess of war, as opposed to Mars, the god of war, right? Which is brilliant, because Libra, the Empress, is the ruler of Venus and is currently in Aries. So when you're thinking about the connotations there and what element Mars is, Aries is, which is fire, it's passion, it's like the full kind of energy. It's that new opportunity, jumping into it with both feet, not necessarily thinking about things first, which is what Venus is really all about. It's about the strategy. Yeah. Now, when now we're into that retrograde, it's almost like feelings will come up from within ourselves that we will question ourselves about what we really feel and know about the love that we currently experience within ourselves and with other people, be it just friendly relationships, be it within ourselves, for ourselves, in partnerships, and even especially as it goes back further into retrograde, past experiences with past relationships. It can also be a time where finances are needed a bit of introspection, and we might not feel as abundant as we really are. Things, it might be due to like an impatience or a misunderstanding as to where things are coming from, right? So taking those things into consideration, these are the energies that we are likely going to be having to focus on. We don't have to, but we will be feeling. Whether we want to face them or not is a different thing. But this is going to be, for the first part of, well, the first half of this month, this is what it's really going to be about before Mercury comes in. Mercury, the messenger, when it's in retrograde, is a little bit of a cheeky bugger. He's a trickster because he zooms around all the planets, all of his brothers and sisters, and he sends messages to and from each other. And when he's flying and he's going, you know, sometimes there's quite a bit of a distance before he gets to one of his brothers or sisters. He gets a little bit bored and he wonders how he can play with them. A bit like the younger brother or the younger sister in a family. You know, it's like, I've got this message that came from Big Brother Jupiter, and I need to go and speak to Neptune about it, right? But yeah, it's a bit of a long distance, and I'm a little bit bored. So why don't I stir up a little bit of a fuss here and cause a little bit of conflict, because we love a bit of alchemy, right? It's through conflict that we can actually learn more about ourselves to resolve issues and how we can. So he's a cheeky boy, is Mercury, especially in the retrograde. And I'll speak more in depth about the Mercury retrograde in a few days' time in a sequel video to this, and then another video after that will come how we will integrate them both together, what we're likely to expect. Now, I'm not sure if you have been noticing any emotional change within yourself over the past, say, 2 weeks, because it's not like, at least I feel, that emotions don't suddenly just change as soon as we're in a retrograde, as soon as there's a standstill, because it takes time. Like, if you think about the distance that the planets are actually moving, and therefore really the speed, at least relative to us and how fast we can move, it's not a gradual thing. It can take a week or two, really, and it can sneak up on us. It's like we suddenly start feeling a thing, and we don't realise what we're feeling, and it gets more and more and more and more until bang, tower moment or death moment. It's like, right, it's right in our face. Yeah, so now might be a little bit of a time to have a bit of introspection, to have a self-check-in, a self-love session, and have a feel about how you've been feeling over the last couple of weeks. You can do it in any of the four suits if you like. If you want to do it in the pentacles, in the way of what we have here, in the financials, in your career, in your belongings. And if you've have a little think. Have you noticed any change in inclination, right, towards these aspects? Have a look if there's within yourself. Have you felt differently towards yourself recently? Have you been starting to love yourself more in a way, or even found out a few things that you may even not quite like about yourself, right? Have a look in your friendships. Are your friendships starting to change? Have you been feeling differently about your friendships? Have a look in your relationships too, and I'm talking about your loved ones, whether you're single or you're not. Maybe if you're in a relationship, you may be feeling a certain way about your partner, and if you're single, maybe you're still going through that disconnection period where you haven't quite, you're trying to cut the cords with a previous partner, and trying to gain some clarity as to the lessons that you're learning in this time, right? So having a little think back, having a little reflection back, and having a think about how you've been feeling over this time can shed some light as to what is going to come. And although I haven't looked at any of these notes here or spoken really on any of them, I feel like I'll save these and I will bring them up later. Just a little introduction into what we'll be speaking about over the next couple of days and couple of weeks. This was completely off of the bat. I knew I was going to do this, so this kind of just came out as it came out, and I would really love some feedback as to what you thought of this particular video. Alright, and also if you have any questions about the astrology that's coming up and the astronomy, and you want me to kind of explain different elements with a little bit more detail and clarity, pop them in the comments, and that will definitely give me some sort of aim to be able to give you what you want and need. All right, so thank you very much. I hope you have a good evening, and main thing to take away is everything is all going to come out for our greater good. Letting go of the control, going with the flow, a bit like the Chariot card that we had in the tarot reading last night, right, where the chariot rider left the light and the dark horses to run side by side along with each other, and he was just going with the flow, riding on top of the cart at the back. Really quite beautiful. Speak soon.